Okay, then welcome everyone, and let's start this class today. We have had a slight gap, so we'll continue. I just refreshed on the last class also a bit so that we can catch up there. So welcome everyone. Let's start. We'll start with the chanting first.
मैं क्या देखूं कोई हिंदू लाइन सोदा दिया है
Let's
सीधे तरफ आने लगे ठीक है
start with the chanting first. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karvavahai तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ श्री महागणपतये नमः सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारंभं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः Okay, so we'll start with our class on Nyaya Sutras. We'll resume. This is the 27th class in series, and we were looking at the third chapter. And since every chapter has two parts, so this is 3-1-27, which we had completed. So there are 5 chapters in all, 5 chapters, each having 2 sections each. So in a way, you can say 10 sections. So we are on to the third chapter, first section, or you can say the fifth section in all. Okay. So till now, we were looking at the last sutra that we were looking at is the one that we were, I'll just share it on the screen and then we can have a look. Okay. So this is the 27th sutra we were discussing. Na sankalpa nimitatvat ragadinam. So here it is being said that till here we were actually looking at the portion where we were trying to understand that all of these sankalpas, all the sanskaras that are there, all the impressions that are left on the mind of a jivatma, they are then carried forward into the next janma, which become dormant impressions for that jivatma to be understood in the next janma whenever he is born. Otherwise, we cannot explain how a child suddenly has certain tendencies which are not the subject of his experience so far. The child has not had those experiences so far. So those can be explained only by the system of sanskaras. We had seen from the 25th sutra, Vitarag Janma Darshanat, we find no one is born without desire. Every creature is born with some desires. So those are associated with whatever he has experienced in the previous birth or previous times. And so those are carried forward with him into the next birth. And thus they become the source of his behavior, the source of his character, the source of his nature for his next birth. So when these tendencies are carried forward, we saw in the next sutra, Sagun Dravya Utpatti Vat Tad Utpatti. So they are produced just as other producible objects are produced in life. So everything is produced. There has to be a cause-effect relationship, a cause-effect relationship. Where so any single cause will produce one effect. That effect will always have the qualities of the cause. And then we have na sankalp nimitatvat. So a newborn sankalpas, the all the sankalpas, all the experiences of the previous world, they become nimit, they become the reason, the cause for what? Rag adinam, for the desires, for all the tendencies that we have in our life, right? So they may be rag or dvesha, they may be positive, they may be negative. So all of these are born depending on the experience. If the experience was pleasant to us, it gives us a feeling of raga. If it was the reverse, then it becomes dvesha, right? So till here, we have looked at how sanskaras are carried from one jivatma, from one individual soul to its next janma, to its next birth, because the soul being eternal, it carries the impressions. The impressions are stored in the subtle body, sukshma shariram, the sukshma shariram, which consists of our mind and the sense organs. So the mind and the sense organs, they are very subtle in nature. They have a very subtle form. That subtle form becomes the recipient or the holder of all our impressions of any particular birth or any particular, every experience is stored there. So when it is stored there at the time of death, the gross body gets merges back into the elements, right? And then when it merges back into the elements, the subtle body remains and it is carried on to a next gross body where all those impressions are stored into the next gross body. The next gross body becomes the storehouse, the house where it starts to live its next janma. And there, the consciousness that is available, which makes it, gives it the ability to express, just like the sun gives all of us energy, it gives us light, it gives visibility to everything. Similarly, the soul or the atma gives the ability to express to the mind. So the mind is able to express with only consciousness. Without consciousness, it cannot express. So that consciousness, it does not change. The soul or the atma, it does not change. It is there at all times from the current body to the next body. Only thing is what is carried, the carried part is the sukshma shariram, which according to its tendencies gets a birth in the household or in the parents of where it can fulfill those tendencies, where it can get a chance to live out all the impressions that are very strong, that are uppermost in its storehouse, which are ready to be experienced. For that, God or Ishvara creates a body where the next janma can be experienced. So, what is the nature of the body that is going to be discussed next? That is the what is the nature of the body. So, how does the body come from? And what are the divisions of the body? So again, as we have seen earlier also, that we have the gross body, the subtle body, and the causal body. So all of these bodies are to be studied there. So when we look at these uh, three bodies, the three sharirams, what is their nature? So first of all, we are going to discuss here the nature of the gross body, nature of the gross body. So sthul shariram. So the gross body has to be understood. So we'll look at in the next sutra. So what does it say? Here it will say that the earth element is the cause of the gross body, but slowly we will move on to all of them one by one. Huh? So always Nyaya Sutra, it follows the process of what is first directly observed, whatever is the first impression that we can get about the body. So what does it say? Parthivam gun antar uplabdhe. So Parthivam gun antar uplabdhe. So our body is composed of the earth element. The body is earthy because it possesses the special qualities of earth, gunantara. So gunantar uplabdhe. Gunantar, the gunas are available. So what is the guna of Prithvi Tattva? The Prithvi Tattva mainly it has the property of smell, and it also has all the remaining four also. So space has only one property, that of sound. And we saw earlier also, all the five properties, the panch gunaha, all the five gunas are present there. So when these five gunas are there, uh, these five gunas, we can easily see that out of them, uh, Shabd, Sparsh, Roop, Rasa, Gandha. So Shabd is in Akasha alone. Then the next element has two properties. So Shabd and Sparsha, and so on and on. So finally, Prithvi Tattva has all the five properties. So in Prithvi Tattva, Shabd, Sparsha, Roop, Rasa, Gandha, all the properties are available. And all these properties are also available in the body also. So in the gross body. So in the gross body, we say it is the it has the special qualities of earth. So there are the beings that the human beings that are produced, or any other being that are produced, they always will have a gross body which will have the uh, Prithvi Tattva as its main component. The solid part has to be there. Without the solid part, there is no, there is a very difficult way to express. There are other beings which do not have Parthiv Tattva, they don't have the Prithvi Tattva, but they are not able to express themselves fully. So that is why the human beings and all the beings on earth, they have this gross body, so they are able to express all of their feelings. So in this we have Parthivam, Guna, Antar, Uplabdhe. Uplabdhe is available, Guna is properties, and so on. So the first sutra we are looking at is which is saying that Parthivam Gunantar Uplabdhe. Our body is possessed of is composed of the earth element because it contains the properties of the earth. So earth has the major quality of smell, but all the other qualities also, other guna also are available there. Gunantar Uplabdhe, they are available. So in this way, it says this body has Parthiv Tattva. Okay. So we'll then read into the next sutra. So this is Shruti Pramana Cha. Shruti Pramana Cha. So how do we accept that any kind of logic that is given is accepted by us? How do we accept any kind of logic? So when this question is asked, then it is clear here that there is a process we discussed earlier also. In logic, there is a process which has to be followed before we accept the truth of any proposition, right? So to accept the truth of any proposition, uh, we have to follow the process of uh, Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. Okay. So Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. So if there is a proposition, then we have to say that whether it is mentioned in the scriptures. If it is mentioned in the scriptures, it was the subject of experience. So why Shruti is given prominence more? Because our natural experience consists of what is available only to the five sense organs, right? So those are easily available to every one of us. For that, we don't need any kind of extra validation. But there are certain other things which we can establish by logic or by intuition or other means, right? So by logic, we can establish something exists. Like we can say that there is a planet nearby, or there is another heavenly body like the moon nearby. Since that is experience to be solid, so it will also have some earth element there. So there we can establish by Anuman Pramana. But then also Shruti tells us those things which are experienced by the realized being, the higher people, the ones who have higher intuition. So through that, they can see those things which are there, which are mentioned in the Vedas. These beings, these rishis actually, they become the source for the Vedas. So Shruti is given the first prominence, right? So if a lot of things are there that we can normally experience, the truth of that we accept very easily. But there are certain things that are beyond human experience like Swarga, Narak, and all that, and of course, moksha and all the subtle domains. So the subtle domains can be are experienced by the rishis, and so we accept that they also exist or they also have a reasoning behind them. So when these subtle domains are being talked about, we are having here a look at uh, the first part of this, how the subtle domains are experienced, that is the Shruti. So Shruti mainly represents the heard part. What is the heard part? The Vedas. The Vedas that were heard in a state of realization by the rishis. So Shruti Pramana Cha is the this sutra. So what does this mean? That it says that this has been mentioned in Shruti also. And then, of course, we just don't blindly accept Shruti. We also verify by our the other two parts, Yukti and Anubhuti, by logic and by Anubhuti, by experience also. If there is a similar experience, then how does it verify? So so there are a lot of Shruti Vakyams, there are a lot of sentences or there are a lot of mention in the Veda where it is mentioned that the earth is the primary constituent. The body is composed mainly of the earth element. So there is the section where it says that when the person dies, then he will merge back into the original source, that is the five elements. So what if he has come from the five elements, then only he will merge back into the five elements, right? So that is why we say that the source is the same as the person where the person will finally merge into. So at the time of death, the body goes back into the five elements. That is, the solid part goes into the solid part of the earth, the liquid part goes into the liquid part, and so on. So this is mentioned in the Shruti Vakyams. So in this way, the Shruti helps us to realize, see and realize that this body is composed of Prithvi Tattva in the main part, right? Then what comes next? This you have seen in Tattva Bodh also, so I'll not go into, and I'll not quote the Shruti also here. We have seen this a lot earlier also. So next, this we accept clearly from Shruti only that the body is composed of Prithvi Tattva. And then we are next moving on to the sense organs. So there first he starts with a doubt. What is the doubt? Krishna Sare Satya Upalambhat Atirichya Cha Upalambhat Sanshaya. So he says Krishna Sare. So this Krishna is what? Black. Black. So what is something that has a portion of it that is black? So if you see the eye, the eyeball is black. So Krishna Sare is used for something that has its essence or its center, which is black. Sar means the essence. So it also means the essence is, but it also means what is at the center of something, right? So if you have a apple, at the center of it or within it is the juice. So that is why the essence of the apple is what? It's the juice of the apple. That is the essence. If you take out the juice, it will slowly dry out and wilt away. It will be finished. So in this way, Krishna Sare. So this, when we are talking about the sense organs, he said, Satya Upalambat or Sati. Sati means is. Upalambat
Sati
is. Hai. So like Asti.
Asti.
Asti, Sati. So in this way. So Krishna Sare Sati Uplambat Vyatirichya Cha Uplambat Sanshaya. So he says there is look at the last word, Cha Uplambat Sanshaya. So there is a doubt. Says there is a doubt. What is the doubt? Sati Uplambat Vyatirichya. So it is doubtful whether the sense organs, if you, Vyatirichya is to separate something. So if we call Vivek is to separate the truth from the false. So there the process is called Vyatireka. Vyatireka. So the process is called Vyatireka.
Process of Vivek.
Vivek is called
Vivek.
Vivechan. So when we do that process of vivechan, we do that separation, then we say that it is doubtful that whether the any indriya or any sense organ is material or all pervading, because there is perception even when there is contact with the eyeball. There is perception even when the eyeball is far up. So earlier we have seen the gross body is composed of uh, the gross element Prithvi Tattva. So within the gross body are the sense organs. So the Indriyas. So when the Indriyas are there, then how do we understand what they are composed of? हम ये कैसे समझे? How do we understand that? So first we have to see that if you're looking at one of the sense organs, which is the one of the most important, you can say, because through it all perception then follows. So if you have to see something before you can touch, hear, and all. So seeing is the most important part. So Krishna Sare Sati Upalambhat Vyatirichya Cha Upalambhat Sanshaya. So whatever be the uh, nature of the eye, that we have to discover. There is doubt about that. So let us examine. हम इसको व्यतिरेक करते हैं. Let us try to understand what is the nature of the eye, because uh, how does the eye perceive? Eye perceives when there is something very far off from us, then also it perceives. But like touch, you have to touch something. It's very helpful, it has to be very close to us to be perceived. So there has to be something in between that is connecting the perceiver with the perceived. There has to be something in between. So what is that something? How is the eye able to perceive? That we have to try to understand. Right. So eyeball is basically, you can say, a material element. It is composed of Prithvi Tattvam, because once we die, the eye seeing power does not remain. So either it is merged back into something else, or it is are not available at that time. But whatever it is, something cannot totally go out of existence. Whatever is there has to maybe transform into some other form. Hmm. And it can become invisible. It can become unmanifest, but it cannot totally go away. Right? So law of transform, just like the law of conservation of mass or the law of conservation of energy, in the case of all of the body and the sense organs, we say that they must have been transformed into something else. So the eyeball, it being a material thing, it being composed of Prithvi Tattva or other tattvas, uh, we have to understand the nature. How is it able to see something when it is far away from that, far away from itself? Even when it is not touching the thing, so eyeball, you don't have to take the eyeball to the object and touch it to be able to see. So otherwise, even without that, perception is possible. So what is the additional factor there which is causing the perception? So basically it's light. So we'll look into that in the next. So one of the next reasons. So Mahad Anugrahanat. So Mahat Anugrahanat. So it is said that eyeball, it is contended that the eyeball is not a material substance because it can apprehend the great and the small. So here the person is arguing that since it can perceive something larger than itself, that means that actually the uh, earth, the seeing power rather, not just the eyeball. The seeing power itself is not a material substance because it can apprehend or perceive or know the something greater than itself or something smaller than itself. So if it had been a material substance, if it had been composed of the Prithvi Tattva, then it would have only be able to perceive things that are of equal size to itself. But since it can perceive, so he is giving the argument that it can perceive something bigger or bigger and smaller. So how is that? So that for that a reply is given. A reply is given in the next sutra, 32nd sutra. So what does it say? Rashmayarth sannikarsha vishusha tad grahanam. So if you split it up, Rashmi, Arth, Sannikarsha, Vishesha, Tad, Agrahanam. So uh, the Rashmi, the ray of light. So light is there all around. So it is not the eye which is totally covering the object to be perceived, it is the light. The eye is not doing the object. So for any perception to occur, the object should be totally covered by the perceiving perceiving entity. जो भी उसको जान रहा है उसको चारों तरफ से उसको किसी तरह से फिरना पड़ेगा. So what is happening here? So through the eye also you can see only what the portion that is in front of you. You cannot see the backside of an object, right? So how is it happening? Because there is a light that is falling on that object, and only the light that is reflected towards the eye, that portion can be seen. The back portion cannot be seen because from there light is not being reflected there. Yes. Right? So through the eye, what when you are perceiving an object, then the object is being perceived through the help of the light. Without light, you cannot perceive. So if you make it totally dark, then things cannot be perceived. So basically, we are associating an external object, an external power, which we shall understand later also, is also born out of the same element. It is light. So light is born out of the sun or any light giving entity. So we say Surya is the Anugrahak Devta, the Devta of the seeing power, of the Chakshu Indriya. So Chakshu Indriya has Surya as the Devta. So how is it that, how does that function? At the gross level or at the macro level, it is the light. And at the micro level, it is the eye. So together when they combine, they can do the act of perception. So Rashmi, Earth. Earth is the object to be perceived, the sense object. Artha is the sense object. So the sense object, for it to be perceived, there has to be sannikarsha, there has to be contact, there has to be some input that is available. So when this happens, sannikarsha visheshat, so when that special vishesh, when that special kind of contact happens, what is that special kind of contact? A light which is more pervasive than the eye, it pervades the whole of the object, and it reflects from the object and carries the information from there to the eye, and thus the this is simple science. So from that, what happens is the act of perception happens. Tat grahanam. So that perception happens here. I think I said tat agrahanam. It has to be grahanam only because there is a halan. So tat and then grahanam. Actually, if we write it properly, this should not be joined here. This should be separate because if there is a halant tad, then there has to be a gap. So you cannot join two words like that. Okay. So actually it's separate from there. So tad grahanam. Or you can put the as a small one under ga. Okay, that is just a slightly technical point, does not matter much. So Rashmi Artha Sannikasha Visheshat Tad Grahanam. So next we move on to the 33rd. So these are simple ones. I'm not taking much time. Any doubts you can ask me. Tat Anuplabdehe Hetu. So he says here Tat Anuplabde Hetu. So what is happening here? There is a contact that is happening. So there is a contact that is happening. So he says the contact of a ray with a thing. Hello. Let's share it again here. Tat anuplabdehe hetu. Contact is not the cause because we do not perceive the ray. So here is saying is that Yeah. We do not perceive the ray. The ray actually is not seen by us. So he's not accepting that the ray can be the cause of the perception. Do not see the ray of light. Hmm. So that is a very childish logic. So that is easily refuted in the next sutra. So basically, what is being said here is that when there is a contact happening, then that contact, uh, if it is you are saying due to the ray of light, then he's saying that it cannot be true because we do not perceive the ray. So if you are not perceiving the ray, then how do we perceive the object itself from where it has come? So basically, if we all know through science also, the ray is perceived, though not in a gross form, but it is perceived at the back of the eye where there are receptors where light reaches. And when that light reaches, the light is also perceived there. So, and there it creates an image of the object. Uski image ban jati hai. There is a lens. So this eye is just a lens. So that image is projected. So here what the reasoning is given here. Na अनुमीयमानस्य प्रत्यक्ष अनुपलब्धि ही भाव हेतु. So he says, though that we do not apprehend a thing through perception is no proof of non-existence of the thing, because we may yet apprehend it through inference, right? So, na anumiyamanasya, we are saying that something that is not apprehended, which is not seen directly. So, how do we get the pratyaksh upalabdhi of it? Pratyaksha. Anything can be not physically perceptible. Pratyaksha anupalabdhi. Anything can be not perceptible through direct perception. But how it can be perceived? Anumiya manasya. It can be perceived through anuman pramana, through indirect perception. So he's refuting the previous doubt that is being said. He said, "Nahi, tum galat keh rahe ho." No, you are saying it wrong. That if you are saying that because we do not perceive the ray, contact is not the cause. So he says, no, that is not right. If something that is not perceived directly, pratyaksha anuplabdhi, then it can be perceived through anuman pramanam or indirect perception. So that is how it can become abhava hetu. It can become the reason for perceiving something that is not available there. So something, the light we are not seeing exactly right now. The light we are not seeing exactly right now. So that is the abhav. So abhav of light being perceived directly. And because it is pratyaksha anuplabdhi, because it is not available for direct perception. But how is it available? It is available anumiye manase. It is available through indirect perception. So what is the reasoning? Simply, if I'll just state in a simple, very simple way, that when we are perceiving an object and there is light, then we can see. So, in those days, if this bulb was not available, a candle was available. So, if the moment you blow out the candle, the object is not available. So, what is that proving? That is clearly proving that it is due to the light that the object is being perceived, right? So, that is how he's saying we can prove it through Anuman Pramanam. We can prove through Anuman Pramanam that when light is there, then the object is perceived. When the light is not there, the object is not being perceived. So you cannot say that the ray of light is not the hetu, not the cause of perception, because clearly the perception is happening only in the presence of light. So na anumiya manasya pratyaksha anuplabdhi abhav hetu. So the abhav hetu, the cause of hetu is the cause of something, any cause. Yeah. So something can become the cause of abhav, even though if there is pratyaksh anuplabdhi, there is no direct perception of that. It can be understood through Hanuman Pramana. It is a process we follow in a lot of things we have seen earlier also, because Anuman Pramanam is the one of the deep core basics of Nyaya. Right. So then we move on to the next sutra. तो अगले सूत्र में द्रव्य गुण धर्म भेदाच उपलब्धि aniyamah. So he says, though dravya, guna, dharma, bhedat, cha. So in how we are able to perceive something, so here we are coming into the distinctive characteristics of an object, how we are able to separate one thing from another, right? So every substance will have dravya, that is, it is a substance. That is how we perceive. Right. So just being a substance is not sufficient for us to perceive. Uh, because with something, if something is a dravyam like air, so if air we cannot easily perceive. So even though it's a dravyam, its existence is there. But it has to have a guna. So what is the guna of guna of this air? It has sparsha. Sparsha. Shabda and sparsha are two gunas actually in air. So in vayu. So in vayu you have dravya and guna, which are dravyatvam is the actual presence of the air, the vayu tattva, and then it has guna, the guna of sound and touch, right? So when the wind blows past our body, we can feel the touch. And also when it's moving, there is a sound. But otherwise, it is very difficult to perceive that. But for other tattvas, there is more qualities. So as the number of properties increase in an object, that is the general rule, it becomes more and more available for perception, right? So Akasha has only Shabda tattva, so it has only one property, so it is more difficult to perceive, right? Vayu has two, then it is easier to perceive. And then Agni has roop also, form also. So there you can perceive. So Agni is the one that is being talked about here, the ray of light. So the ray of light is again another form of Agni Tattva only. And then, of course, dharma. So everything has its own intrinsic qualities, right? So what is the guna of Agni? The guna of Agni is rupa. It has form. And what is the dharma of Agni? What is its intrinsic nature? What is the intrinsic nature of Agni? Heat. Heat. Huh? So heat, it is then urdhvamukhi, it moves upwards. Those are the dharma. So through that also you are able to. So you can close your eyes and yet you can perceive Agni. Yeah. So through the heat part. So dharma is also becomes the nature of a substance becomes a cause for its perception. So dravya guna dharma bheda cha, because of all of these differences, uplabdhi niyama. So they become the reason for perception. They become the reason. Uplabdhi ka niyam ban jate. They become the reason for perception. So in this way, he says basically what we started with, let's keep our eye or on the larger picture. So the larger picture is we are examining uh, the subtle sense organs. So ज्ञान इंद्रियों को देख रहे हैं हम, the five sense organs of knowledge. पांच ज्ञान इंद्रिय. So out of these five sense organs, we examined first the eye. So eye is able to see something. How is it able to see? Because of light. And then other than that, other than light, what else are the things that the eye perceives? Dravya, guna, dharma, bhed. So all of these differences, because all of these things that are present in the object to be perceived, the act of perception happens. इस तरह से हम जान पाते हैं. In this way, we are able to know something, right? So that is how the act of perception happens. And then we move on to the next one. So I'm going quickly. I'm not taking too much time here. We've done this multiple times. We've done with the examples and all that, like in Tattvabodh and Atmabodh. So I'm just keeping this short here. Just trying to highlight where Nyaya maybe puts in a bit a slightly different viewpoint. So it has a unique approach, but overall, all the approaches they melt into one only. All the different Darshan Shastras, they provide a composite picture of reality, different ways of knowing something, but other overall the technique is the same. They follow the similar framework. There will always be variations, but those variations are reconcilable. So अनेक द्रव्य समवायात रूप विशेषात च उपलब्धि. So अनेक द्रव्य समवायात. So by the process of combination, samvaya, sambandha, or the process of combination. So by that process of combination, lot of objects combine. So then what happens? Roop vishesha cha roop uplabdhi. Then different variations in the form and color of an object is perceived. And thus what happens? Roop uplabdhi. Then form is perceived. Right? So what is basically being said here is that when we are looking at an object, every object has different colors, every object has different smells and so on. So if we just currently look at the chakshu indriya, what we see, what we see. So when we look at what we see, then everything has different colors. There is a variety of colors, right? So how does that variety of colors happens? Anek dravya samvayat, right? So a lot of elements get together. So if we look at the complementary darshan shastra of Nyaya, what is the complementary darshan shastra of Nyaya? It is Vaisheshika. Vaisheshika. So in Vaisheshika, what is the smallest unit that is the holder of a property? That is the Parmanu. Parmanu. The Parmanu is the smallest particle known to humanity, or is that is present in nature. So that smallest particle, normally when it is not in a state of vibration, it is invisible. It does not have vibration. It is invisible. Wow. The Parmanu. We cannot see the Parmanu, right? But when does it become visible? It becomes visible when a vibration is imparted to it. उसको जब हम कोई vibration डालते हैं. Where does the vibration come from? It comes from sound. From sound. So when sound is imparting a vibration to that, then according to the intrinsic properties of that Parmanu, every Parmanu has different intrinsic properties, right? So each Parmanu will have the property of color, of smell, and so on. Sometimes one Parmanu will have only one quality. So when these qualities are there, then in one Parmanu there is only one quality, or if there is color, then it will have only one color, say red. So if something, another object is there, which has, say, a color that is orange, and which is a color between yellow and red. So how is it happening? What is happening? Two colors are combining. So that is what is being mentioned here. Anek dravya samvayat. By combination and recombination of the properties or the colors. So two Parmanus are combining. Two Parmanus are combining. And then through that combination, we are getting the variety in nature. There are so many different objects in nature that are existing. So anek dravya samvaya, roop vishesha, roop uplabdhi. By the combination of many of these objects, this roop uplabdhi, these different forms are seen in nature, right? So all of these all of these forms when we see in nature, uh, they are what we call of a composite nature, combined nature. So something might have only red color. That means it has only the Parmanu of red. But of course, other Parmanus also. So in this way, when an object is perceived, it has different colors. So some of them might be only of having a primary color. Some will have secondary colors that are mixture of colors. And in this way, this the previous sutra that we talked about, where we said that an object is perceived through dharma, guna, through dravya. So all these three are become the cause of perception of an object. So within that also, here we are talking only of the guna. So when we are talking about the gunas, then all of these gunas are combining together to give us a composite picture of an object. We see an object we see the variety in nature. That variety that we see in nature becomes possible because of this samvaya. Samvaya is a very important concept of Nyaya and Vaisheshika. Of course, it's discussed more in Vaisheshika, but here also it is mentioned here. So here it is mentioned as being the efficient cause, the probable cause of how variety in nature exists, right? So we'll move on to the next sutra. So till now we have seen the eye is perceiving something. The perception is happening through the method of the reception of light, light being more encompassing more wider in availability than the eye itself. It is able to bring us signals from different objects that are bigger than the eye, and the eye is able to perceive them. Hmm. And then when the eye is able to perceive them, the perception of the eye happens because the object itself has dravya guna dharma, and then of course anek dravya samvayat. So because of multiple gunas being present, there is the variety in nature. The eyes are able to see different things, and there are different kinds of colors, and you can apply the same logic by extension to others also. There are different kinds of touch, there are different kinds of sounds that emanate from different objects, and similarly for the other two gunas also. Different smells from the Prithvi Tattva, and the different taste from the Jala Tattva. So all of these five tattvas have their five respective properties. These five properties are there available, are cognized or known or observed when an input is received by those sense organs, and that input, through that input, the mind analyzes the input, and it is able to give us a picture of the object, right? So a picture is formed in the mind. So the object does not directly enter our mind, only the image of the object enters our mind. So next is karma kari cha indriyanam vyuha purushartha tantra. So there is always a central entity that is the receptor of all of these inputs. So what is that entity? We call it the Purusha, the Jivatma, the soul, or the conscious entity. So whatever that conscious entity perceives, so that is perceived, that is received by it. The inputs are received by it through the different sense organs. So karma karita cha indriyanam vyuha. So all of these sense organs are, they're like the servants. They are subservient to the human being itself, to the jivatma, the conscious entity that lives within this body, that is the holder of this body, that is the one that makes this body function. So without consciousness, nothing can function. So that center of this body is being described here. What is the central body? Purushartha, Purusha. So Purush, Artha, Tantra. So that Purush is receiving the inputs. So when the eye is receiving different inputs from the different objects, there is what is happening there? Karma karita. There is an action happening. There is an action happening, and through that action, the sense organs are able to perceive something. So that they are able to perceive that thing. So for that, what is the vyuha? What is the center? What is the uh, what is the entity that is the holder of these? So for everything that is there, for any entity that is functioning together, there has to be a holder of that entity. So if you are driving a car, there has to be a conscious person driving the car. Otherwise, the car will not drive on its own. So consciousness is always has to be the center. So Purusha Artha Tantra. So the Purush has to be there, who will be able to receive the inputs from the sense organs and then be able to form the composite picture, take the composite picture, and then based on that, the Purusha will form different impressions. These impressions then become what we call the samskaras. They become the reason for his next coming experiences, or for his what we call raga and dvesha, which we saw in the 27th sutra. Right. So for those raga and desha to happen, there has to be a central entity that should be the receiver of all of these sense inputs. So the sense inputs are provided to the body, through the to the gross body, through the subtle body, the subtle five sense organs, and then when it is received there, there is a central conscious entity which is holding all of these together. Okay, so then we look into the next one. So avyabhicharacha pratighato bhautik dharma. So avyavichara. This is something that we can say invariably. So what do we say invariably? Pratighato bhautik dharma. So because of this observation that we have so far, the sense organs being something that merges back into the earth element when the at the destruction of the body, so that means the sense organs itself are material substances. So here he says that all of the sense organs are born out of material substances only. Bhautik dharma. They have a bhautik dharma. They are born out of Prithvi Tattva or the remaining five tattvas. So all of these are there. So actually, there is a corollary to this, where there is another Gantha. We'll not go into that in detail, where this all of the five elements are discussed in detail, not just the I. And there it is discussed how the bhautik dharma that is mentioned here so far is actually to be taken as the dharma of all the five elements. All the five elements, they become the uh, they are said to be of having all the sense organs, all the gross body, all of them are born out of the five elements only, right? So avyabhicharacha pratighato bhautik dharma. So the sense organs he's saying here are they are material substances. They are born out of the five tattvas. And so uh, because they can invariably receive obstruction. So nothing uh, uh, can be a pratighata. That is the additional part here. Nothing can become an obstruction to the sense organs. So the sense organs, you can say they can perceive something without any limitation of distance, unless there is a pratighat, unless there is an obstruction. So if there is a material substance in between, then the perception of the sense organs will not go beyond that, right? But otherwise, if that is not there, they can perceive. Of course, there is certain limitation to that. But basically, what he's saying is uh, the sense organs are able to perceive some everything, but if there is an obstruction, then they won't perceive. So that shows that they have a bhautik dharma. They have a property of being one of the five elements, right? So I think we'll wind up for today because I think almost on time, over time. We'll stop for now. Okay, then. So I think today, any questions anyone has, anyone wants to ask? Is it Pankaj has joined also? Uh,
No, sir. This is my first class, so yeah, I was just
okay.
understanding.
Is it Pankaj, my friend Pankaj or Saxena?
No, no, I'm a
Okay, okay.
different Pankaj.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so nice. So nice to have you. So sorry, I think it might be a bit confusing for you because we are in the middle of the class. But if you wish to, we can share with you the previous classes. They are available on Clubhouse also. So all the on my profile, you can check out Yogesh Malhotra. So there, the previous classes are there. The recordings are available. So any other questions, George, Manisha?
Yes, I had one question.
Yeah, yeah, please.
So earlier you mentioned that Paramanus are only efficacious when they have vibrations or in a way when they act as waves.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Um, is that linked to the efficacy of mantras?
Yes, yes, right. Efficacy of mantras is there because the Parmanus, they get activated by mantras. So very nice input by you. Thank you, George. So very nice of you to notice. So mantra, it activates a lot of Parmanus within us, which gives us more power, it activates more powers within us that make us able to do activities in a more refined and much better manner. The mantras are structured themselves that way that they activate a lot of Parmanus, which are beneficial for our daily activities. Thank you.
So would you say that
Yeah.
Paramanus are in a way um, waves or vibrations conceptualized as an irreducible particle.
Yeah, sort of. Because what is happening is through the eternal vibration that the what we call Om, through that Om Shabda, all of the whole of the universe is created through because it has all the vibrations. So all it creates all the objects of the universe. But within the universe, there is the Jiva, there is the individual soul. So that individual soul, in order to progress, it is given the aid of these Vedic mantras, where the things beneficial to it can be energized and made available to it by these mantras. So in this way, the vibrations help us conceptualize or realize or achieve a lot of things. They awaken within us a lot of powers, right? So like if Indra is the devta for the Viveka, the power to know the right from wrong. Huh? So that power is awakened by Indra. So when we chant Indra, when we chant the mantras related to Indra, they awaken within us the power of knowing the truth more clearly. So in this way, all of these different powers are awakened within us by the different mantras, right? So, so anything else for today? Okay, then I think we'll wind up for today. Let's Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om. Thank you all. Thank you so much for coming. It's really good to have you all here for the class. I hope you all have a wonderful day today and a wonderful week ahead also. Thank you so much. Thank you.